So it is Tuesday, 4 o'clock in the afternoon here in Sweden. Tuesday, which is a Mars Day, and this Mars Day seems to have inspired me with a strange, interesting set of thoughts which I wanted to share with you. Jeff's not with me, as you can see. I've put Rudy, Herr Doctor, in his place to hopefully inspire my thinking in this process. So what is it I've decided to talk about? There's been some really interesting news events over the past few days in the AI space and the artificial intelligence space, which seem very interesting in the context of this question: should we fear AI, or can we redeem AI? And there are a couple of developments. You might have heard them on the talk shows, talking about them, especially in the economic news, talking about the huge impact of a new search engine. I've been digging into that, and I think there are some discoveries I've made with regards to that, with experimenting with it a little bit, with reading around it, that begin to give us a possible answer for how AI might be redeemed. And this is a big thought-in process, obviously. I'm not coming with an answer, but I do want to share some of my experiences with you, both working with AI, these latest developments in the AI space, and see where that leads us. So what is this event that has happened? Let's just see if we can flick over to replace Rudy for a minute here. As you can see, this is YouTube, so like freshly loaded. I put in DeepSeek. This is a new search engine created by the Chinese, which is confounding many people and also causing many people to hope. So there are a lot of videos out there, and they talk about it in a far more detailed way than I do, the way in which it excels, why it's so surprising for the industry. And if you're interested in the AI space, then I definitely recommend you. So like you go in and have a look at some of these. What I want to do, however, is to, using a worked example, show how it can be very useful in the context of anthroposophy, so like learning anthroposophy, and I believe beyond. So let's have a dig into this process that I've been involved in now for the past, I would say it's around about past 6 to 8 weeks. For those who follow the channel, they know that I've been doing a series with Jeff and Alexander on GA2, which is Goethe's the theory of knowledge implicit in Goethe's world view. And this is, without doubt, it's a piece of tough philosophical reading, and in parts it is very difficult to penetrate. Just a couple of words of like warning or to set the context. Because I read German, I prefer to do this type of work in German. You will see a lot of German so as I scroll through, but when we get to the bit where I'm going to go into detail, that's all being put in English. Okay. So let me show you a little bit how I've been working with a site called u.com. So the context is I've put in the whole document of GA2 in there, and I have a process of note taking where I read the German and then I condense it. It's like every sentence. It sounds laborious. It is, but it's very rewarding. Read a sentence. Do I understand it? I understand it. I write the equivalent sentence down in English. Okay, and so like I work systematically through each chapter, but inevitably there come points in the text where I can't follow the logic. Something so, and it's an indication that I haven't actually fully digested an idea that's already been presented within the text, or perhaps has only been mentioned in seed form, and therefore I can't make that jump. So what I've been doing in this text, let's see if we can scroll. You can see it's quite a long text here. Okay, let's go and have a look at one of the questions that I've asked here. So here's a specific one. What's meant in chapter 12 when he says, why do I perform a judgment when the thing that requires the belongingness together of subject and predicate mit den Fällen desselben nichts zu tun haben? Why does it have nothing to do with the cases? Okay, so you can hear by the confusion in my voice that it's a confusing sentence, and even when I'm sitting there reading it and digesting it, so I can fully understand the German, but I still can't make sense of it. So what I do here, and I'm not going to translate this, it's I just say to u.com here, where I'm telling it, don't go out onto the net, don't go and search any information from that. Just stick within the logic of the document, or stick within the logic of GA2. And it does so. And it begins to explain, as here, what is meant by judgment, and it allows me to spend more time thinking about this long, complicated German sentence. So I've been using that systematically to work my way through to a thorough understanding of the key concepts in GA2, in the theory of knowledge implicit in Goethe's worldview. One of the many reasons for doing that, but arguably the most important from my perspective, is it gives us a sound footing for working with the philosophy of freedom. And it's incredibly enriching for those that have read the philosophy of freedom, sensed a certain amount of dissatisfaction in the sense that many things were said, but at the same time a sense of I don't feel as if I grasped it all, because it's when I'm reading the text, it's it doesn't flow like a musical symphony. The one thought moving into the other. It feels like staccato. It's a piece here and it's a piece there and it's a piece there. But this unity that is there in the text seems to be missing. So GA2 is fantastic for that. So I've been using it to expand my understanding of this. By the way, you could equally well do this in English, and you could even use the German text and just ask it in English. It wouldn't make any difference. And you could, if you preferred, you could use the English text, but my recommendation is put in the German original and then still ask questions around that. You haven't got that filter of translation going on there. So where was I? That's the process that I've been using, and it's led to a lot of progress in me understanding what Steiner means by living thinking, the importance of experiencing the difference between concepts and ideas, and a lot of other things. But I was particularly struck, I'm trying to remember what it was that struck me this morning. Let's see if I can actually go back and trace what it was, because it would have been about here. Yeah. So a little bit sort of like outside here of u.com and the text. So I actually ran a couple of tests for me to test this new DeepSeek, this Chinese model, to see how much better it was. And I had some weird examples, but they went exceptionally well. Far better than paid models. This was a free model, so I got it to do certain things that it would have been ChatGPT, the GPT-4 model. Not the absolute most advanced, but I also tried with 0.1. It's like what the most advanced reasoning package that ChatGPT or OpenAI offer. And even there, it's like perhaps a tip here, if for people who are interested in this space, anthroposophists I'm talking to here, okay, is take an area you feel you know really well, and then ask, and it doesn't have to be just about anthroposophy, but it can be. But take an area, whatever it is, an area you know really well, and ask ChatGPT to answer that question. And if you find it gives a satisfying answer, then great. That's good. But if you find an area where it's sort of like, no, this is completely unsatisfactory, like, for example, you live where I do in Sweden, and you are interested in knowing, because you're a strange person, okay, you're interested in knowing what is the change in the length of day in the month of January here in Sweden at my latitude. And ChatGPT just gave me back a bunch of rubbish. And I tried multiple times to get it to give me a good answer. Basically, it said, go search for yourself on the net for it. Because I had already done that, I knew what the good answers were. But I was really surprised at how it was incapable. First of all, it hallucinated. It made up crap. Then it told me to go and to like find a decent resource on the web. It didn't tell me which resource to use. Okay. Put exactly the same question into DeepSeek. Comes back with a perfect and accurate answer down to the second of the length of change of day, which I could verify with select the sources that I feel that I can rely on. So yeah, that was me reflecting on the importance of knowing an area well, so you can actually test whether a model is any good. Okay. So this morning, what actually happened this morning in this on this morning full of, with strengthened Mars power? Let's put it like that. So I was thinking to myself about this process with working with GA2. So I wrote this question that you can see on the screen here. Let's just can I just do that so you can read the whole thing? Hold on, let's try that. Okay, you can't read it all, but I'll read it anyway. I said I would like you to ask me a question that tests my understanding of the whole text. After I have given my answer, I will then ask you to comment on how my answer is correct or wrong or could be improved. So it was testing me on the whole of GA2, and I give a very simple answer. The question it asked me, how does Steiner describe the relationship between thinking and experience in his epistemology, and why does he argue that thinking is self-sufficient in understanding the essence of reality? Okay, so I gave a I gave this very brief answer, which was, definitely would have got me like an E, like in an exam. But that was part of the process. So I said, thinking as it lives in the human being connects us to the essential or the being of something. This essence is invisible to the senses. Now, this is definitely it's like content that I have that I've imbibed from reading GA2. So it answers me back. It tells me what you said there captures an important aspect of Steiner's epistemology, but it could be expanded and clarified to fully address the question. This is very interesting because it's helping me to understand, to develop my thinking, to become clearer in my thinking. And this is, we'll see as this develops why this is so important, so exciting, and I believe is intimately linked to this question of a possible redemption of AI. I don't mean as a single act, but as a redeeming act within AI. So it comments my answer. What is correct? You correctly identify that Steiner sees thinking as a means of connecting to the essence or being of something. This is central to his epistemology, where thinking is not just a subjective activity, but a way of participating in the objective reality of the world. Steiner indeed emphasizes that the essence of things is not accessible to the senses alone, but it is revealed through thinking. You highlight that the essence is invisible to the senses, which aligns with Steiner's view that sensory perception provides only one side of reality. The other side, the essence or idea, I used being also in my answer, is grasped through thinking. Now, this is where it begins to get valuable to us as teachers. We are trying to grow in our conceptual clarity when we start to work with anthroposophical concepts, which includes the philosophical thinking that is a key part of GA2, GA3, which is truth and science, and then GA4, which is the philosophy of freedom. So what could be improved? Self-sufficiency of thinking. Steiner argues that thinking is self-sufficient and contains within itself the means to understand reality. Your answer could emphasize this more explicitly. Thinking does not rely on external elements to explain the essence of things. It finds the reasons for connections within itself. Second, role of experience. Steiner does not dismiss sensory experience, but sees it as incomplete without thinking. Your answer could clarify that thinking works in conjunction with sensory experience to reveal the full reality of the world. Number 3, Steiner views thinking as an active process that goes beyond passively receiving information. It is through the activity of thinking that the human being participates in the creation of knowledge. This dynamic aspect of thinking could also be highlighted in your response. Final point from improving my answer. Steiner describes a duality between perception, what is given to the senses, and thinking, which reveals the essence. Your answer could explicitly mention this duality and how thinking resolves it by integrating the sensory and the ideational of the conceptual, the ideational of the ideal world, ideal in the sense that it's nous. So, and then it goes ahead to give me an integrated answer, which as a single piece of prose. Okay. But as I was reflecting on how useful that process was, and this really big news event in the AI space, I asked it the question: what significance might the above insight have for the further development of AI? And this is where it begins to get very interesting for me, as a means of understanding how we can go beyond the fear of AI. There's a lot of fear out there about AI, about how it's going to impact humanity, and it's certainly not unjustified. But one of the ways of overcoming that fear is understanding how it can serve humanity, and what are the qualities of AI that we need, so that we don't end up becoming enslaved to it. Okay, so I'm going to reflect a little bit more on the answers here as I read them out. So I gave you the question: what might Steiner's thoughts on thinking have for understanding the AI space? So, Steiner's assertion that the reasons for connecting concepts must be found within the concepts themselves suggests a model of reasoning that is internally coherent and self-contained. For AI, this could mean developing systems that do not rely solely on external datasets or pre-programmed rules, but instead have the capacity to derive connections and insights autonomously from the data they process. Now, this is crucial, because what it's saying is that let the phenomena talk for themselves. We don't want a dogmatic thinking. This could be dogmatic political left, it could be dogmatic political right, it could be dogmatic climate science, it could be dogmatic dementia, my favourite word, COVID virus, and all of this type of thing. What it's saying here is a healthy AI that is in harmony is not the correct word, that in its essence is the same as thinking in its essence, will look at the phenomena without prejudiced eyes. That's basically what it's saying here. Okay. So it goes on, encouraging AI to move beyond pattern recognition and statistical correlations, which are often externally imposed, towards a form of reasoning that is conceptually grounded and capable of generating explanations from within its own framework. So this self-sufficiency of thinking itself, this thinking activity, one of the pictures that's presented in GA2 and 3 and 4 is that the thinking is an organ, and it is a coherent being, and that it's organic in the sense that it's multifaceted. It has many integral parts, but they are all in harmony with one another. If anybody's familiar with the term cognitive dissonance from psychology, this is we avoid cognitive dissonance creates, let's call it, mental pain. Okay, so we avoid information that we can't integrate into our thinking. Yeah, this is like living in a bubble. We have to live in a bubble to protect ourselves, because our thinking, at whatever stage of development it is, it's like it hears this new fact coming in, and it says, I can't absorb that. That's like that'll destroy the unity of my thinking, so they exclude it. Okay. So this is what's being talked about here: this self-sufficiency, thinking as a whole being, an integral being, a harmonious being that cannot live in conflict with itself, or it does everything it can to avoid conflict with itself. But of course, the world is continually throwing phenomena, facts, information at it that challenge that harmony and one way of understanding what's thinking is what experience is getting us to do is to create an idea which is capable of accepting the whole world, of being able to integrate it into our thinking. Okay. Point 2. What can AI learn from Steiner's view on thinking? Overcoming dogmatic AI models. Steiner critiques dogmatic approaches, and we'll be talking about that on Sunday, actually, Jeff and Alexandra and I, because we're at that chapter 14 in GA2. Steiner critiques dogmatic approaches where knowledge is accepted without true insight into its foundations. In AI, this could correspond to avoid black box models where the AI produces results without transparency or understanding of the underlying processes. So this is exceedingly interesting because even though you might pay for ChatGPT, you as a user are not privy to the thought processes that are going on. You don't know its chain of reasoning for giving you the answers it does. So it is not transparent. It's not revealing its thinking to you. And if it's not doing that, you don't know what it might be inserting into it for biases. But with DeepSeek, we've got something profoundly different going on there, which I can't actually demonstrate directly here because I'll be able to do it in a few days. But there is enough evidence on the web already for this fact that with the advanced model, which is a damn sight cheaper than ChatGPT, it's around about a 30th of the cost. Some people say 40th or 50th. So let's just contextualize this. This is the this is one way that it was described in the media, and you might recognize it. So imagine you're this company, Apple, not too difficult to imagine. Okay, you've got this fantastic iPhone, and it sells for $1,000, and you're selling it left, right, and centre, and everybody's happy. All the customers are happy. Then along comes this Chinese upstart. It has something that is better than an iPhone, and it's selling it for $30. What do you think is going to happen to Apple then? And this is what's happened in the AI space. So coming back to this black box, okay, I wanted to give some context there for what this DeepSeek is. The other thing that DeepSeek provides, not only does it give far better answers, as the change in length of day example, and there are many more that I talked about earlier, but you've got in the paid model, you can see the thinking that went on. So you can follow it in its thinking. And this is identical to the process that Steiner talks about again and again, the importance of it in the philosophy of freedom. Thinking about thinking. And to be able to think about thinking, it has to be it has to be there in front of you. Okay, and this channel is called the exceptional state, and this is this exceptional state where we begin to think about our thinking, reflect on this actual thinking process, not the content of thinking, but the thinking process itself. And this is what DeepSeek is enabling us to do within the AI space. So it's removing the black box, the proprietary black box. Okay, so this is another reason why it's so exciting, and the importance within the field of AI ethics. Okay, so the second part, it says designing AI systems that can explain their reasoning in a way that is accessible and meaningful to humans, ensuring that their judgments are not based on opaque or arbitrary mechanisms. there are so many different ways that the information provided by AI can be skewed to serve certain needs. With this type of model, where you, if you choose to, you can look at the reasoning, the ability to keep those biases secret is reduced, possibly even disappears completely. I don't know. That perhaps that should be a PhD question. To what extent is that possible? But it's certainly a lot more open than anything that Meta, OpenAI, and Claude. It's like the three main players in the space. I don't think I've forgotten any important names. There are lots of. Yeah, you can do your own homework there. Okay, so 3. How this could inform the AI debate. How Steiner's thinking, about Steiner's description of the nature of thinking, the true nature of thinking, can inform an ethical AI. Okay. Number 3, internal coherence and conceptual understanding. Steiner emphasizes on the internal coherence of concepts, suggests that AI should focus on conceptual understanding rather than mere data processing. This could involve building AI systems that can understand and manipulate abstract concepts rather than just processing raw data or identifying patterns. Encouraging AI to develop semantic networks or frameworks where concepts are interconnected on their intrinsic relationships rather than external associations. For example, in natural language processing, NLP, this could mean moving beyond statistical language models to systems that truly understand the meanings of words and sentences in context. I can't even begin to imagine how this would happen. One of the really interesting things that happens in this AI space, if you look in the history books, and obviously not ancient history, this is like history from the last couple of years, you'll find that these models, let's say they've never been given, a Persian data training set. That's like a data set that is written in Persian or Chinese or some other language. But it has developed an AI understanding of grammatical concepts. It's like the grammar that underlies all the sentence structure that I'm using so that you understand what I'm saying. That is something that is true of all languages. There are different aspects to this grammar and there are different uses, and so the grammar of Italian isn't identical to the grammar of Russian, certainly not identical to the grammar of Chinese. But one of the things that they discovered as AI was becoming more and more sophisticated, it was acquiring abilities which it had never been specifically programmed to acquire. So whether this emergent property that's can also develop of striving for this internal coherence of concepts, to what extent that's possible, I ask somebody who really knows about this stuff. But it is interesting for me, this emphasis on the internal coherence that is identical for Steiner's description of the essential nature of thinking, this internal coherence that seeks to integrate everything into itself, but also, as they're saying here, it's like moving beyond mere statistical, quantitative methods for establishing relationships and moving to conceptual and perhaps qualitative. That might be an aspect in there as well. Okay, and the penultimate point that it makes, Steiner's philosophy also has ethical implications for AI. If AI systems are to act autonomously, they must be capable of self-sufficient reasoning that is not dictated by external biases or constraints. This could lead to the development of AI systems that are not only more independent but also more aligned with human values, as they would base their decisions on internally coherent principles rather than arbitrary rules. This might seem like brought in from a long way, but if for those people that have like a somewhat deeper insight into some of the causes of the conflict between the East and the West at the moment, as we're seeing it predominantly played out in Ukraine, if you really begin to investigate there, this is a rejection of the rules-based order. And I find it deeply fascinating that we're finding here, it's like in this like answer from AI about how we have ethics, we can't just have arbitrary rules that as like some person makes up, and sometimes or some country or some organization makes up, and it's like says this is how things have to be. We need something that is internally coherent and based on principles, based on human values and not political power. But you can also begin to perhaps understand that how these AIs can be programmed to be optimized specifically for that type of thing. And this is a wargaming happens with AI obviously as well, to see how they can maximize whatever resources they have to war. Okay, so and the final point, Steiner's view of thinking as a self-contained totality that does not rely on external elements resonates with the idea of creating AI systems that can think in a meaningful sense. This would involve developing AIs that can reflect on their own, or developing AI that can reflect on its own processes. This is what we see happening with DeepSeek. We know it happens within the black box models, but we're not given entry to that critical information. So it reflects on its own processes, evaluates its reasoning. This is one area in which DeepSeek also seems to be shining. It's the its ability to reason in its way of reasoning is how can I put this in a somewhat simplistic way? They used a different training methodology to create this DeepSeek, which is different from the ways in which all of the other black box proprietary methods were created. So this creativity has been brought into this space, and one aspect of this is an emphasis on evaluating the own reasoning process within there, and this is one of the reasons it's said to be and is proving itself to be far better at dealing with complex questions, because it's somehow able to reason both more efficiently and better than all of the other far more expensive, far more resource hungry black box alternatives that are out there. And it can refine its understanding without external intervention. Again, this is this coherency. It's like, let the phenomena talk for themselves. Don't let prejudices come in there and affect the weightings of these. The weightings are the probabilities of words being put one next to the other, very simplistically. So they have to be internally coherent. And then the final point with regards to, as a thinking entity, moving toward a model of AI that is not just a tool but a partner in reasoning, capable of contributing to human understanding in a meaningful way. And this last point is the essence of how I've seen a great deal of value added to my own learning, to my deepening into anthroposophy, my deepening into the philosophy of freedom, my deepening into this spiritual activity of thinking. This has been fostered, it has been improved by working in tandem with AI to understand this process, which is this activity which is always living in us. Okay, so the final conclusion is Steiner's insight challenges AI developers to rethink the foundations of artificial intelligence by emphasizing the self-sufficiency of reasoning and the importance of internal coherence. His philosophy points towards a future where AI systems are not only more autonomous and transparent, but also capable of true conceptual understanding. This could transform AI from a tool for processing data into a genuine collaborator in the pursuit of knowledge and insight. So how might I think that the conclusion is we can leave it there with that conclusion about its the use case for within anthroposophy, and how it can be adapted to serving humanity rather than enslaving. Perhaps a final reflection of the world we live in. One of the papers I was reading this morning, which rarely, if ever, talks about AI. It does talk about it in the context of how it's going to take your jobs and that type of thing. But critical thinking towards AI is definitely lacking in this particular paper, and it was almost comical today. It was the banner headline was something along the lines of, if you use DeepSeek, then the results are biased. If you try to look up Tiananmen Square, you won't find anything about it. I haven't actually tested whether it's true or not, what they say about Tiananmen Square. That may be correct. It may not. Perhaps somebody would like to try that. But one of the things that I do find interesting in that type of article, in that type of banner, that provocative banner, is the absolute hypocrisy. It's the failure to recognise that there are a stack load of biases in all of these US models, but that doesn't get talked about. Okay? So it's not a genuine criticism. If they were really sincere about it, they would also talk about the ways in which AI is also is skewing truth, is biased. But they don't. So it becomes a political statement instead of a statement about AI in general. This is to be expected. People want to politicize this. One of the things that I hope has become a little bit clearer by listening to this, there's a lot of value to be gotten out of AI, And this transparency of thinking, which is so important for us as human beings, is also now being offered as open source by this Chinese company called DeepSeek. These are interesting times, and I think I'll sign out with that. I hope Rudy, I feel a little bit naughty calling him Rudy, let's call him Herr Doctor. I hope Herr Doctor was somewhat in agreement with my description of this AI process, of what is going on, because one of his key thoughts is technology is part of our future. It will increasingly be part of our future. We as anthroposophists must not run away from it. We don't avoid it. We learn to use it in humane, responsible fashion so that technology can serve humanity and avoid becoming the slave of technology.